Brett?
Rich and Leah, they say there are two things in life you can't avoid: death and taxes. That may be true of death, but in New York, if you're a retired government worker or teacher, you can't avoid state income taxes.
I mean, I look at it like, all right, I was already taxed once.
John Picone worked at Delphi Corporation for 37 years before retiring with a nice pension. But each month when that pension check arrives, it's a little lighter thanks to New York State.
I would love to be able to say, I'm not going to get taxed on money I've already been taxed on.
Picone's pension is subject to state income tax.
If I have to pay, and if it's a law, then everybody should be taxed the same way. Everybody should be treated equally and equitably the same way.
Currently, anyone over the age of 59 and a half from the private sector will pay state income tax on a pension above $20,000. But I-Team 10 has learned that retired government workers and teachers pay no state income tax at all on their pensions, something that got us wondering why they're entitled to special tax breaks that aren't available to everyone else. Shouldn't they also be taxed?
If you start doing that, okay, people will start moving away.
Public employee unions say they're already being made a scapegoat in the name of pension reform, and point out that many of their members contribute to the state pension fund during the first 10 years on the job.
They put that pension in place, and they made it attractive so you could get into the teaching profession, because the teaching profession, especially at that time, was not making a lot of money.
We got on the phone with the State Department of Taxation and Finance and found out that if government and teacher retirees in New York were fully taxed on their pensions, the state would haul in an extra $862 million a year. We were unable to get an exact figure if taxes were excluded from the first $20,000 as they are in the private sector. Still, with so much talk about the pension system going broke, we took that number to State Controller Thomas DiNapoli.
I think we need to keep in mind that 80% of the retirees from our system choose to live in New York. Perhaps having that tax break is one reason why they live here.
A good point. DiNapoli says the state pays out $8.5 billion in benefits a year, meaning it gets billions recycled back into our economy. But if that's the argument, why not give everyone that break?
Really, people exit this state when they retire because they can keep more of their well-deserved pension in other states.
State Assemblyman Brian Kolb has sponsored a bill that would make private pensions under $100,000 tax-free.
The whole goal here, Brett, is really to get people to want to stay in New York State when they retire.
Many retirees head for states like Florida and Nevada, which have no state income tax. DiNapoli says on balance he thinks the system we have now in New York has worked pretty well. Still, he didn't dismiss the idea of extending the tax break to everyone.
When you look at those on the private side that perhaps are moving out of state, maybe if we enhance that benefit, more of their money would stay in the state as well. It might be something for us to look at.
Picone says it's not about trying to stick it to the public employees, it's about fairness.
To me, it's like, those were the rules, but is it equitable? Is it fair? No, I don't think it is.
DiNapoli points out that the average public pension is only about $19,000. Even if they wanted to tax state pensions, it might take a constitutional amendment. That's because in the past, judges have ruled it's not just a tax break, it's a pension benefit, and those are constitutionally protected in New York. And we'll continue to track Assemblyman Kolb's bill to level the playing field to see if that gets any consideration. Rich?
But you know as well as I do, if the bill passes, that's a lot of money, a lot of state revenue that is lost, and how do you make it up? Raise taxes?
Well, I guess you might have to. Assemblyman Kolb says it would cost the state about $750 million in tax revenue if the minimum was lifted on private pensions. And given the state of the economy, it could create a huge revenue gap for the state. But if you take the argument that giving the tax break keeps people in New York, perhaps a good portion of that money would be recycled into the state's economy.
That's a good point, too. Brett Davidson with our I-Team 10 investigation. Thanks, Brett.